So just give it a start. Don't be irritated by all the people are going out. I have some questions for you, so I need a bit your participation in my little presentation. Whom of you ever did an eye screening? And I'm not talking about you going to an expert to get new glasses. Please put your hands up if ever in your life you had an eye screening. Good. Anybody in the last 2 years, let's say? Okay, that's 3 people. Whom of you did know that technology has developed in the last years that far that via an eye screening, we would not just detect if you have glaucoma, DR, or any other eye disease, but that via a screening, you could find out if you would or might have a heart attack in the next 2 years, or a stroke? Who was aware of that? Okay, final question. Who wants to go now to an eye screening in the next year? So there is a lot happening in technology, and what I would like to do with you today here is 2 things. First of all, I would like to introduce my company, Halma PLC, which is based here in London but operating worldwide. Second, I want to dive a bit deeper into a topic which is very close not just to our sectors we are operating in, but also close to our heart, and that's about preventing blindness. And specifically focusing on India and China and what we might learn from these countries. So if you're interested in that and your assumption was so far why we learned from them, they learned from us, perhaps after my little keynote you might have a different opinion on that. So Halma, it's one of the best kept secrets of the FTSE. It's a FTSE 100 company. We have had our annual results this week. So we have 1.2 billion revenue, 45 business acting globally. We have international hubs on a lot of continents. Our market cap, going back again to yesterday's share price, is rather 7 billion and not 6 anymore. 6,000 employees, and we have done in the last 10 years 35 acquisitions. When we do acquire companies, it is mainly because these companies operate in 4 sectors we are in. This is first the process sector, process safety. We protect people and assets at work. As an example, Crocon, one of our companies, does wearables for workers to detect gas in sites, chemical sites they're in, to warn them. We have companies in infrastructure safety. It's here all about keeping people and assets in public spaces safe. We have here a company called BEA. They do entrance automation of doors, of elevators, of staircases. We are in environmental tech. Here it's all about safety in food, water, air. One of our companies, Palintest, is making sure that the water with which your salad is washed is okay and not contaminated with anything. And last but not least, our companies are in the medical sector, here mainly in the areas of patient assessment, everything which is about heart rate, blood pressure, and that's why it comes to the topic of today's talk, in the area of ophthalmology. So that's all what's about screening, diagnosing your eye, the instruments you need to do that, but also to do surgery. So it's a large corporate, but if you look closer at us, it's made of small to medium-sized companies. What we do is we have a very decentral system to organize our companies and to lead them, giving them a lot of autonomy, and that keeps us to the point that they are still very entrepreneurial and agile, which is important if it's about going and driving innovation and digital. And it's also important if you look at our purpose. Halma's purpose is growing a safer, cleaner, healthier future for everyone, every day. Everyone, every day. That's 7.5 billion people every day. There's 2 points to that really massive transformational purpose. First of all, half of this population is living in Asia Pacific. Yes, China, India are part of that, But if you want to make a difference in safer, cleaner, healthier, half of these population lives in Asia Pacific. Second, if you want to reach that target at any one day, then digital is needed. We have to go digital, otherwise we will not get there. Nobody will get there by just selling hardware. So why does it matter? People being blind, or as we also say, who are visually impaired, so that's all these stages before you get blind. We have 285 million people visually impaired on this world, and from this, yes, 39 million are blind. 90% of this visual impairment comes from low to middle income countries. And if you look to the right bottom corner, then you see that looking at Southeast Asia and Western Pacific, India and China makes a big part of these burden of blindness if you look at regions. So there's a lot of different kind of disease. I will not go too much into detail, but nearly half of these disease is cataract. Cataract is very easy explained, a clouding of your lens. The good news about this is you can detect this and you can do something about it. So you can give people back their sight. If you talk about, for example, glaucoma or diabetic retinopathy, you can do something about it, but you have to detect it early. That's why screening is important, not just in these countries, but also for us. Early enough detected, you can prevent blindness. Doing nothing, you get blind. So what can we learn from countries like China and India? And if you remember, not much from this presentation, but maybe then you remember the concept of the 4 Ds. So what to do about preventing blindness and what can we learn? And the 4 Ds are, first of all, it's about distribution of expertise, tech, screening. It's about digitization. It's about democratization. And it's about delivery. Let's talk about distribution. We at Halma had started in October last year at the Gift of Sight Day, a campaign where we are supporting a charity. This charity is called the Himalayan Cataract Project. What these people do is they go to very rural areas with a team of experts and doctors, surgeons, to screen people, and the same day, or let's say the next day, they will also do surgery if it's about cataract. Remember, this is one of these diseases that you can either prevent or cure even by surgery. We have not just provided instruments and technology to that project, we also made ourselves the target, screening all our people within Halma. And for every person screened, we have added money to the donation we gave to the Himalayan Cataract Project. I would love to share with you a little film which makes it quite emotional, obvious why this is such an important topic.
I can see you now.
In Ghana, an outreach team is screening villagers at a cocoa farm. Their goal is to find people with curable blindness, such as cataracts, that would benefit from eye surgery and potentially regain their sight. Most employment here is physical, like farming, so being visually impaired is a huge disadvantage.
Most of their communities have little or no access to healthcare. Some of them have not had any group of medical team in their communities ever.
The outreach buses are transporting patients to the theatre, ready for surgery. When they arrive, they are screened again using portable slit lamps and a cutting-edge ophthalmic camera, which has been donated to the project. Then the anaesthetic is administered. This is the last stage before surgery.
What we do is that we go inside your eye, we take out the diseased lens that is opaque, and then we replace it with an artificial lens that is crystal clear.
The surgery itself is a simple process which takes between 10 and 15 minutes.
People come in with walking sticks, aided by their relatives, and then the following day you take the patch off, and then you see them looking around. They see the world in a different light, and then suddenly they can walk on their own. Some people just burst out laughing, or sometimes even crying, or burst into song. You have been part of a team that has changed someone's life.
The thing with eye is that the impact is immediate and instant, and they just can't believe it.
She just pointed out now the two eyes can see. So she was quite happy.
Yes, you have recognized that was neither China or India, haven't you? The point I want to make here is it's a question of distribution. So if you have disease, preventable blindness, or disease you can cure, like cataract, then how do we get to very rural areas to screen people, to make a diagnosis, and to find out if something needs to be done or not? And then keeping in mind that it's not just in Africa where we are lacking experts, doctors, GPs, whatever, who could do the screening and make a diagnosis. So here comes where hardware and software with AI comes into play. Because enabling these kind of devices, not just with the ability to screen and having somebody to diagnose it, if the AI is integrated into that by making an as good decision, hi, you might have a problem, you have to go to a hospital or you have to do something, otherwise you get blind, then anybody of us could do that screening. That's the idea, and there's lots of startups establishing out there, and here just to mention some, based here in both in China and the US, but I come to more specific examples about India and China. So one thing to learn really is how to distribute it, especially if it's large countries or very rural areas or missing the experts. Specifically for China, it's all about digitization. So it's already some years ago when the decision was made that it's target and it's funded to explore the digital techniques regarding eye disease prevention, diagnosis, and all the following, improve and manage of information. So based on that decision at that time, and we have 2019, in the last 5 years, lots of companies, and not just startups, have established in that area. They got funding, both governmental but also from private companies, to tap into this topic. One example of bigger companies is going Intel together with Baidu, with the AI hospital, to bring deep learning into the systems of the hospital. AirDoc is a startup I met last year. They have a huge database already of screened eyes, so of pictures, and have started developing an algorithm and an artificial intelligence who could do that diagnosis and saying there's a problem or not. Same is true for Voxel Cloud. And iCarbon X is not specifically on the topic of blindness. It's a care platform for all different kind of disease. But there's a huge ecosystem in China developing. Next week, I will go to Shenzhen, again, to meet some of these startups, but also to meet new companies with whom we might work together. Because when you still think about China and some of its regions, especially also Shenzhen, and you think, oh, that's manufacturing, then please go there if you have not been there the last 3, 4, 5 years. Because it's not just about manufacturing only anymore. It's about technology, it's about startups, it's about lots of great people from both China, but also the rest of the world going there and developing technology, specifically in AI. What can we learn from India? Here I would say it's all about democratization of that service. So we have plenty of examples in India which also have the characteristics of being huge population, quite decentralized rural areas. But another problem, of course, is how do we deal with people who can't afford, maybe, being in the healthcare system or any healthcare? So what India does is a democratization of eye care, supported by the government, but then also supported by companies and business models, like, for example, the project which is running at the Aravind Eye Hospital. That's a project together with Google, where it's decided, depending on your income, if you have to pay for that eye screening or not. Or if you take Forest Health, for example. So we have here also startups or companies who have established, like, artificial learning systems, AI Sion, Ayanetra, who are experts in their field and who developed, based on data, but based also on people in these companies, to solve that problem in India. So how to get it democratized, that you get people having access to this kind of service and screening. So yes, there is a race for leadership in the world if you look at AI overall. So, and there's a lot of countries and data on that slide, but if it's just about the top countries, if it's about global distribution of AI startups, then you see, yes, the United States is still on front of that, but China is the next one on that list, and if you go down, India is on place 9, which is not too bad. And again, you find the startups I have chosen for that speech today. So our company, who is anyhow in China, so 12 to 13 companies from Halma are active in China. We have an office in India. We have companies in India. So for us, of course, being there anyhow, also looking at that ecosystem of technology, talent, and innovation is really essential. And for us important then also to go into these countries and scale. So we look for partners there. The final D in what we can learn is about delivery. So what can countries, organizations do to make sure that based on your targets or vision you have, it's also delivered? And yes, there's funding. There's funding, governmental funding, definitely in China, also in India. But if you start creating this ecosystem, then also private funding will come in. Private funding for startups, for technology. Second, both China and India have, of course, quite a lot of people, but these people also get more and more educated and get more and more from manufacturing jobs into tech jobs. Especially China is just skipping that second or third step of industrial revolution. They directly go to innovation 4.0. And that gives another thing about delivery. If you really focus on mobility, on connectivity, then you are much more enabled and much easier being a front runner and what are use cases and business models, how I can deliver, for example, eye diagnosis everywhere in the country, with what kind of technology, how to make it mobile, and so on and so forth. So 4 things to remember, the 4 Ds. I don't know if we have any time for questions, or we are good in time, I think.